We need to talk about it with people who are making a difference, and we need to outsource to military spouses to do these things for us.
Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsey Germono interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Listen as they focus on the stories, both challenges and wins, that military entrepreneurs have faced in growing their businesses.
Welcome to another episode of Drop and Give Me 20. This topic is probably going to be my favorite topic because it's the most cumbersome and complicated and the most to give me a WTF moment in my life of being a business owner. I am joined with two very good friends of mine, Rebecca Alwine and Anna Rabe. I have cherry-picked them, hand-selected these two ladies for this specific Drop and Give Me 20 podcast episode. And I want to thank you ladies both for coming on. And we're not going to figure it all out, but we're going to definitely talk about this topic. So I want to start by doing some introductions. So Anna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, it's good to be with you, Lindsey. So I have a communications consulting company. I come at this from an interesting angle because I'm a lawyer by training, but like many military spouses, I can't practice in the state where my husband's stationed right now. And that's been the case for a few years. So I predominantly work with law firms. I produce a lot of inbound marketing content for them. And then I do about 50% of my work pro bono for screened nonprofits. So we do a lot of communications, strategy, strategic planning, crisis communications planning, and all of that kind of stuff. So yep, I have every member of my team except one. My web developer is a mil spouse, so I have six mil spouses on my team.
Thank you for what you're doing for us, and thank you for everything that you're doing for the pro bono clients too. I know that that's needed. So Rebecca, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a freelance writer, and I fell into this about 5 years ago and made it full-time just within the past 2 years. I write within the military community and outside the community, and I've expanded a little bit to include social media, some consulting, and some research in that area. I also employ a mil spouse part-time, and whenever I'm looking to outsource anything, that's where I go first.
Let's just get into it. You know, I told you 20 minutes goes quick. Everybody who's listened to these podcasts are like, Lindsey, we get it. But I just got to tell you guys, 20 minutes goes so fast. So I already told Rebecca and Anna that, you know, this topic is something that, again, we're not going to get through. So I'll preface this by saying, if you have more questions, you want to kick this topic around, please reach out to Anna, Rebecca, or myself. We would love to just, you know, grab a cup of coffee. But the topic is going to be, and in a nutshell, this compliancy or nuances, I would say, with hiring. We're talking about a W-2 employee versus a 1099 employee, but from the perspective of, you know, being business owners. So with that being said, I'll just kind of lay the foundation, and Anna and Rebecca, you certainly interject, but here's how it all goes down. You are operating remotely, typically as a military spouse business too. You're headquartered in one area and you've got, you know, employees or clients all over the states, and that's great. When it comes time to hire, you have the option of either selecting someone as a W-2 employee or a 1099 freelance contractor, however you want to call it. Now, we can carry on about the differences between the two, but, you know, when it gets to the point where you're actually hiring that person, so W-2 employee, let's say that person is a military spouse or someone who has not changed their home of record. So your home of record is where your state of residency would be. So a military spouse may not change that because she or he is moving every 2 to 3 years. And I mean, you know, the nuances of never know. Sometimes you're just someplace for 8 months. So to go through all the changes, right? So when you're hiring that person, their state of home of record, state of residency could be, let's just say Pennsylvania, but they're physically located in another state, let's say Florida. That's where they're located performing the work out of. This is where it gets even more complicated when you go to file for those numbers, right, ladies? The different state entities get super confused. They don't know what you're talking about. Why isn't this person, and you're not headquartered here, and what does that look like? So that's where I leave this part of the conversation, and I want to toggle it over to Anna first and just share with me, did I nail that right? I mean, I know that's how I understand it. I'll say it.
So there's a couple of things that I think is really important. and I'm not picking on you, Lindsey, but I think it's important. Firstly, military spouses do not have a home of record. That is a military member thing only. But what we can have is a tax residency. And that tax residency is exactly what you're talking about. So we're just using a different term. And the term of art is tax residency because it comes under the military spouse. You know what? I'm blanking on the name of the act, but it's called the MSRRA. And that's what it allows us to continue to keep that tax residency as long as it is the same as our service member spouses. It has to be the same. You can't have different ones. And you have to have established that tax residency together. So you have to have lived in that state together, either at the time that the service member joined the military or sometime after they joined that you were stationed there. And then you kind of keep it together. Now, not everybody falls under MSRRA, so that's the extra question. So when it comes to kind of deciding how we do this, many states have a specific form that whether you're usually if it's W-2, then there's a specific form. So I'm in the state of New Mexico. There's a form in this state that military spouses can fill in saying that they are exempt from state taxes under MSRRA. So one of the first things I would do is if I'm looking to hire someone under W-2, we would look at that state that they are physically located in, that they're stationed in, and see, is there a similar kind of thing? Is there a form that they can fill in? And then we look at what their home state says about income. Now, some of that is going to be on the employee themselves. Now, what I don't want people to do is abdicate all responsibility as business owners for filing those income taxes, because companies have a tendency to do that when it comes to mil spouses, and you leave your employees in a really bad state. Yeah. I have to say, for me, I have at this point hired only 1099s, and I've done that for a couple of reasons. Because most of the work is very creative, I'm keeping very much in that contractor space. I'm not controlling their work hours. I'm not controlling where they're doing it. But I have a project coming up that's going to be very much in one location doing very specific tasks. Now, for those people, I am going to do W-2.
You have to.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to make that decision based on that contractor W-2 split, but then kind of understanding how that MSRA works. Sometimes I have to tell you, your employers won't even know what their tax residency is. So it's a really good thing to learn this stuff. And I have to tell you, not everybody knows it. I am more than happy to have a 15-minute conversation with you and try and work through it. Not on the legal advice side, right? Because I'm licensed to practice right now, but we can talk through it together. And I've done that actually with a lot of different companies. And a lot of different people.
Awesome. What about you, Rebecca? Tell me your thoughts on this. So thank you, Anna, for that. And please listen, I don't have it sorted out, so I am good with you going, hey, let me clarify that to tax residency. So thank you for that. So Rebecca, hit it.
So it's the Military Spouse Residency and Relief Act. Residency. Yes. I have been on both sides of this as a W-2 for another company in a different state from which I am a tax resident. And luckily, my husband and I have the same tax residency state, his home of record, where I lived beforehand. And I have filled out that form numerous times, have pushed an employee numerous times, get me this form, and have then had the correct state's taxes taken out of my paycheck. Now, I am, at this time in my life, straight 1099 and have, a whole host of other issues with that because I've lived in 2 states this year, 2 states last year. Neither state is my state of residency. And I'm estimating taxes quarterly based off of a fluctuating. I mean, come on, you know what I mean? Like, It's stupid complicated, but at the same time, I'm only dealing with me right now. I do pay my one person 1099. I file that, help me with a form at the end of the year that says, goodness.
Oh, your contractors.
File your Schedule 10?
Yes, I send them that paperwork. Luckily, they're a resident of the state that they live in and pay taxes in, so it's a little easier. But the onus is on them for that too. It's a hot mess. Nobody understands it, and nobody cares about it besides us. And that's okay with me most days because that's our life. Like we got to deal with our own stuff, our own way. And I almost prefer that nobody else has their hands in what I'm trying to do right now because they'd screw it up, as y'all see every time you go do this. And I think the W-2 1099 conversation, maybe we should do this again next week and chat about that because we probably all have very strong feelings about that as well. But when it comes to the taxes, I feel as though my situation is very easy because I have had the same state of residency since I became a legal adult. It's the same as my spouse, and I've figured that part out right now. We did toy with changing our residency together in our last duty station, and then it was just not worth it. I mean, we didn't end up doing it. So
I want to talk about, so we're talking about the nuances with this. And something I want all listeners to hear, if you are an employer, you are a business owner, please do not let this distract you from hiring and going through the process. Yes, it's cumbersome. Hey, but listen, I can do it in my sleep now, and I'm sure Anna and Rebecca, we can help you with that. So please let it be a conversation and an educational moment for your company. The benefits, and we can talk about this probably the third week, Rebecca, of hiring somebody who is remote that you would go through all this for, and having that employee retention is, utmost importance to me. And so I will go through all of that. I'll go through the headaches to do this. Tips and advice for those that are in this place of, okay, I'm getting ready to do all this. What should I do first? Are there any tips or advice that you ladies can share with those that are listening? I mean, sometimes you got to get into it and screw up a little bit, but
I think where I'm at the moment too, and I'm even doing some of my own research on this, is I genuinely think starting out, if you're hiring people as 1099s now, you have to understand that if they're a 1099, you cannot exercise the same level of control as a W-2. But it's a good place to start. You really need to have your bench. You have to have your accountant that you can talk to about this. You need to have that advisor you can ask these questions of. Now, ideally, find a milspouse accountant that you can talk to. And there are a few out there if you need one. I have one that I adore, been with me for a few years, and she and I have worked through some of these things together. So that's my first piece of advice, is get yourself a good bench. The second thing that I would say is make sure you do this research for yourself. So make sure you're compliant when it comes to state taxes for your business and understanding, because this is a whole nother episode about like where you legally form your business. I'm legally formed in Delaware, but I'm a foreign entity in New Mexico. You may have to register for sales tax in more than one state. Just understanding that business nexus, and that's a big phrase, but that's actually really important. And that's something on an advocacy level. I'm not the only one doing work on it, but it is something that I've had conversations with elected representatives about, how we define nexus when you have employees that are tax residents of one state that maybe you don't do business in. Does that actually constitute a business nexus for sales tax? That's a much more complicated conversation. But definitely do your own research to make sure your business is good before you start hiring people. When you're hiring people W-2, you have to remember it isn't just hiring them W-2. You have to make sure that you're good on payroll taxes. You have to make sure you're good on workers' compensation as well. So it's a little bit more complicated, and I'm starting to go down that additional route myself at the moment. So
we at Germono Advertising Company only have employees, W-2s, the nature of our work. We cannot do 1099s. I will 1099 out, creative or graphics or something like that, and that's fine. But because we are telling the marketing coaches and the various markets that we represent, here's how you do it, and here's how it's done, and here are the programs that you use. It was best explained to me, if you have a leak in your house and you hire a plumber, and that plumber comes in and fixes the leak and, goes on his or her way, you have not told them what equipment to use, what piping, what material. That's a contractor. That's a 1099. But if that plumber comes in and you're like, I want you to use this equipment and I want you to do it in 2 hours, and here's how you do it, here's how you fix that leak, that's an employee. So that was best explained to me a long time ago. And I was like, I just always remembered that. You kicked around something that was really important, which is that payroll. And you also shared out Nexus. And I want to make sure that we circle back to that. But I want to make sure, Rebecca, did you have anything to add on that? Anna suggested was have that bench. So your trusted accountant, your advisor, things like that. How does that look for you?
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, you cannot do everything well yourself. You just can't. You need to outsource things to experts. And that involves an attorney if you need one, an accountant if you need one. And, my favorite is a professional housekeeper because, I need one. So you got to outsource these things. And the second thing I really pulled from what Anna said was, we need to talk about this. We need to have conversations, and it needs to be serious, nitty-gritty sharing of the details, conversations with each other. Because if we all spend the next 5 years trying to figure this out, we will have wasted like a million years. So I really feel like it's important that we talk about this. I mean, we might not ever figure out how to do things in Montana, and that's really only going to affect a teeny tiny little Air Force base, in Montana, but we can nail Texas and Florida and Virginia and, New Mexico. We can nail some of these states down and save the next generation so much time and wine and headaches,
And wine.
I mean, we want them to have that too, but we need to talk about it with people who are making a difference, and we need to outsource to military spouses to do these things for us.
An incredible point that you just made that I'm going to highlight is that, Rebecca, you said it for those that are coming after us. That is a true indication of a leader, in my opinion. We don't need the recognition for this. It's how can we make it better for those that are coming. Listen, we've gone through the headaches and we just don't want you to, right? So
exactly, on so many fronts, but particularly in this one.
Yes. I want to talk about I wrote this down, Anna, nexus. What does that mean?
Okay, so when you're talking about whether or not you are doing business in a specific state, each state has a definition of what they call business nexus. And it's going to vary a tiny bit, but largely speaking, a lot of this is already being litigated at federal level and everything else. And what nexus is it determines whether or not you fall under some of those taxation rules and fall under some of the law of that specific state for your business. And so, as I said, every state varies slightly differently, but a business establishing nexus in a state could be, for some states, as simple as you have an employee, a W-2 in that state. Or it could be that you have you have to have a physical location in that state. So for many of us, guarantee the state you are physically stationed in, and that nexus is established because you are physically located there. Lindsey, I know you have 2 residences, which means nexus in 2 different states on that basis. And that's hard. But the other part of this is making sure that you look at those states' rules and just kind of gather how that's going to affect your business. Now, I don't know if you heard, did you hear about the case out of the Dakotas where it's showing that if you are buying products and they're coming into the state from an online business, I think it was actually like Wayfair or Joss & Main, the state has said, no, we can charge sales tax on those. So that's online only sales. And that case went up to federal court, and that's how it came down. At the moment, that decision only applies to South or North Dakota. I can't remember. It's one of the Dakotas. But it may end up applying to all of us. Now, I can tell you from my state, New Mexico has a sales tax deduction if I'm doing business only online. And so I have a lot of clients that are out of the state, and so I can deduct those income amounts from my sales tax liability. Your state might have that too. You need to go and do the research to figure out what deductions you're eligible for. Some of these things are going to start to change, and they will impact milk-spouse businesses because we do so much online.
Yes. I wrote down 3 things as we were talking. So selling, taxes, if we're service-based versus we're selling widgets, that's like that entirely different conversation, complications in that as well. We are a service-based industry. My agency is, so I'm okay, but then I'm also trying to keep up to speed, Anna, on, what I need to do to stay compliant. Let's talk about, as we start to kind of wrap up, why do you guys care about staying compliant? I mean, there are businesses that are like, F it, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to do it the cheapest way, and I'm not going to worry about it. What are your thoughts?
Well, it comes back to personal ethics for me. I mean, I'm going to follow the rules and I'm going to do the right thing because that's what I expect from myself, from my spouse, from my children. That's how I was raised. And that's really important to me to be compliant. And I'm also not willing to take the risk. I mean, what if I get caught? I mean, I'm not going to speed more than normal people speed to get caught and have to pay a ginormous ticket. Like, no, thank you. I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to follow the rules to the best of my ability and knowledge. And at that point, I feel comfortable. So if I am messing up because I don't know something, but I've researched and I've asked and I've made a true effort to know that, I'm good. But if I just blindly sit here and say, oh, I'm currently 1099 and nobody's actually taking taxes from me. And like, well, the rule could be interpreted to say I don't have to claim anything under this. It's not true. Like, if I make $5, if you pay me $5, I have to claim those $5.
Yes,
No matter what. It's important. It's so important.
It's so important. So the three of us are in a lot of Facebook groups that are entrepreneurial minded. And we see this topic all the time. And again, that's why I selected you both, because I see what you share and I'm like, nailed it, Anna. Nailed it, Rebecca. You guys are also equipping those that are asking with the knowledge. And this is actually, I know it's a headache. Listen, we've all been through it, but this is actually how you want to do it right. As we start getting to the 20-minute mark, I want to make sure that we don't miss anything that you ladies wanted to really bring home on this subject. Is there anything else that you want to add? I mean, again, we're going to have to record another one, I feel like, for really getting into like some of these things. But I love the tip, Anna, that you recommended on, getting that bench. Rebecca, you were like, don't cut corners, do it right. Do it right the first time. Anything else that you guys want to share about this topic?
So it kind of goes back to the beginning, but this is something I'm super passionate about. If you're a military spouse business owner, actually any business owner, you have to make sure you've got your legal ducks in a row in terms of how your business is formed. Please don't be operating as a sole proprietor or a straight partnership. I can give you just two really simple reasons as mil spouses we don't want to do that. The first one is, if you do that, you're actually putting your service member spouse in a difficult situation, because if you're dealing with community property states, any business debts are going to be accounted to them. It could impact their security clearances. It could impact their jobs. I know 100% that's not something you want to have happen. So the second part of that too is, I want you to protect yourselves. I don't want you to find yourself in a situation where you lose your house because you haven't made sure that you have that entity that's disregarded for you when it comes to having an LLC or an S Corp. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive. Believe me, the cost of doing it is cheaper than what can happen.
Amen. Thank you. Rebecca, any thoughts?
I just want to make sure that everyone who is listening understands that they need to be comfortable asking questions. We don't have all the answers. I mean, spoiler alert, we do not have all the answers. But we have already spent so much time on these things and have shown that, the amount of information that you and Anna share with the community, I go to you first with questions because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So don't be afraid to reach out to any of us in any way that we can help. And if we don't have the answer, like I say all the time, I'll help you find the person that has the answer, because I want to know too. So just don't do this on your own. There's no reason to do this on your own.
And my piece of it, thank you, Rebecca. And my piece of advice would be to this conversation that we're having, if this is something that you can empathize with, and we know a lot of military spouse business owners that can preach on this topic too, keep talking about it. Keep sharing it with people that will listen. You have no idea how many business owners I speak to, civilian business owners that are like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, let me tell you what this is like. So please keep sharing this out. It's not a gripe and moan session about business nuances. It's just, sometimes you can't fix what people don't know. So I would empower, those that are listening, please just ask the questions like Rebecca says, find those resources like Anna says. And then, like I said, listen, just keep that voice going, keep asking questions. Even if it seems like we already went through this, but I need to be clear. And I do think it's worth it, to, in your bootstrapping, when you're planning to open, listen, save some money and get this stuff nailed down. You don't want to be in a position where, like Anna said, you could be affecting your service members' position. She made a really good point on that. I've honestly never thought about that, but it is a good point. So how can we connect with you ladies? Anna, where can we find you?
So there's two great ways. One would be through my business Facebook page. It's just under my full name. So Anna Blanch Rabe, and the Rabe is RABE, or Romeo Alpha Bravo Echo. We're talking mil-star stuff. And then my website is the same, www.annablanchrabe.com. Now, I will tell you, if you fill out a form and you make an appointment with me, I have a special category for military spouse-owned businesses. I will give you more time, more free time than I give everybody else, because I care about you guys.
Thank you. And Rebecca, how can we connect with you?
So my website is whatrebeccathinks.com, and you can contact me that way, or through my email is whatrebeccathinks@gmail.com.
And you both are very present on LinkedIn as well. We'll be sharing your profiles out that way. Thank you, ladies, so much for coming on and talking about this topic. If any of our listeners have anything else they want to add, if they have found the solution to this, please contact us. We would love to hear what you're doing. If there are any government entities or folks that could present some ideas to us, please contact us. And we are, more than happy to discuss this topic of, hiring, compliance, taxes, all of that stuff. So thank you, ladies, so much for your time today and being supporters of the Drop and Give Me 20 podcast. I really appreciate you both. I appreciate what you're doing in our community as well.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.